The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Patrick Nicoletis. I'm the Chief Technical Officer for ConnectSMART. Today, we're going to cover a little bit about ConnectIO and how it fits into the overall picture of the ConnectSMART platform. Some of you know you might use dashboards or you might use the reporting solutions we have to offer. ConnectIO is kind of the bridge between those two target applications that allows them to pull information that's relevant to all of your managed service provider systems. Currently, we're focusing on the PSA and the RMM tools directly. Just to kick things off, go ahead and log right into ConnectIO. Right now, I'm using our staging environment. Typically, you guys will go to io.connectsmart.com to log into your production portal. Basically, what ConnectIO is it's a data warehouse. As you guys know, you have information in ConnectWise, you have information in LabTech, Kaseya, Autotask, whatever it might be. You have various tools out there, and it's a bit of a pain to aggregate that information, get it into one place to make it accessible to your management team, your customers, whoever it might be. And so what we've done over the past year is put together this web solution, and this is what actually is responsible for bringing all that information together, put it into one place, making it accessible to the reports, making it accessible to the dashboards. And today we're going to talk a little bit about the details with regards to how you set up ConnectIO, what kind of information it imports, how is that information stored, how can you get access to it, not only using our reporting utilities or dashboard utilities, but whatever reporting solution you guys would actually use as your primary source for generating your BI data. So ConnectIO, as you can see, this is the dashboard once you logged in, and I'm using my demo account. You'll see some messages below because I've run some imports before, but right now we basically have a system that isn't configured whatsoever other than we have a basic store created. What a store is essentially a database. Whenever you want to import your data, you can create stores in ConnectIO. You can create as many as you want. We have customers that have multiple ConnectWise instances. They might have multiple RMM tools, whatever it might be. This allows you to create different silos for that data. So what happens is you don't end up mixing and matching systems that shouldn't be mixed together. It keeps everything nice and partitioned, makes it easy for you to actually export that data out directly for those tools. You can basically send a request into us. We can package up your whole entire store and send it to you. That way you basically have your own copy, but there's always a copy available to you through the ConnectIO interface. So some of the things to go over are basically the menu structure we have here. Under configuration, we're going to talk a little bit about the pack editor. Packs are essentially integrations to multiple programs, structured into a single container. So we have a ConnectWise pack, we have a pack for LabTech, a pack for the other PSA and RMM tools, and the idea is it's a single container meant to talk to one application and get all of your info into one place, that place being ConnectIO. The content stores, again, are really all about creating those silos for your information. Makes it really easy to deploy one of those. You kind of configure which packs are going to import data into those stores themselves, and it lets you manage remote access to those stores, because what we allow you to actually do is set up accounts, read only to the silos that you can use to hook into whatever other designer you choose, such as Crystal Reports, for example, which is a very popular option for some of our end users. And then the last piece of the configuration aspect that we're going to cover is the scheduling of tasks. And a task to us is basically an import operation. It could be a report that you want to generate on an interval, whatever it might be. And there's a couple other avenues we'll discuss briefly that we're going to be dropping in here in the near future so that you can schedule up other operations that have nothing to do with importing, nothing to do with report scheduling. Maybe it's a task you want to run on demand that you can't today very easily, so you can do functions like that underneath this section of the menu. Inside of the browse, you can actually view the custom reports. Right now, what we've done is we've integrated ConnectIO reporting right into the web console. So instead of having to go anywhere to the anywhere outside of the application, any reports you upload using our report utilities are instantly available from the console, which not only allows you to view the reports inside of the ConnectIO console directly, but allows you to email those reports out, get the links to your end users so they can actually bring them up remotely on their end system. The model viewer is actually just a quick browser of what is in your store, what kind of data is there. You can edit rows from it. You can delete rows. You can actually get kind of a clear picture on what information are we putting in there and what does it look like. So it just gives you kind of a quick overview to make sure that A, all your data is there, B, the data looks right, and C, if you have any questions with regards to, how we're calculating something based on what we're seeing, you can go to that section and kind of figure it out based on what you see under each table in the database. The generated reports is centered around those reports which you've scheduled. They run on an interval or they run immediately. It depends on how you set that up, and we'll cover that in a second. It's basically just a catalog list of all the reports that were generated from a task specifically. So that way you can click on them, you can open them up. It's basically the same exact link that's going to be emailed out to whoever you sent it to. That way you have a record of what was sent and, what is that end user seeing when they bring that report up. The logs are pretty standard. They're system logs, user logs, whatever it might be. As scripts run, they generate logs. You can see that on the dashboard right here. As users do various actions in the systems, those are also put into the log as well. That way you have some form of an audit trail when users are doing different things inside of the system. Underneath the security section, pretty straightforward. Right now we allow you to manage your users. We also have some features coming where you can manage remote service access for our more advanced users that might be writing integrations to ConnectIO. We have full API available, so you can actually push records into it remotely through an API. You can also request information, query your silo or your store, and do various other functions as you see fit and depending on your skill level when it comes to writing integrations to third-party systems. So to get started, we'll go a little bit into the store first. Basically, a store, like I mentioned, is, a silo for your information. So right now I have a store called ConnectSMART. We have the actual database name, and you'll notice it's really just your tenant name underscore whatever your store name is. You can simply create new ones from this page itself. We can actually just call it, demo store. No need to give it a description. Hit save. Creates your demo store. Notice it actually, drops it into the table right there, and it's immediately available to be used to import data into. A couple things to point out here. You'll notice that, this access button is red. This one is green. The access is actually used to grant remote privileges to query against that store using some form of a SQL management utility. One of the ones that we recommend that we use all the time personally is Heidi SQL. It's a great little utility. It's free. It can connect to MS SQL, can connect to MySQL, allows you to manage multiple servers and things along those lines. So what you can actually do is enable that account, give it a simple password, and hit save. You'll notice that this goes to green, and what that does is it actually activates this account to engage with the MySQL server directly for your specific tenant. You'll enter your password, and you're good to go, essentially connecting to it to view your data. The way that we actually import information is pretty straightforward. The first step to that is, we want you to tell us which packs you want to use. For this demonstration, we're going to use ConnectWise, and we have a thing called a table prefix. So for some of our more advanced customers, we actually allow you to deploy the same ConnectWise pack to one store. And as you can kind of imagine, that can cause a few problems. And so what we allow you to do is specify, for this specific pack deployment, I want everything to be to have a prefix of CW underscore. So what that means is all of your tables are going to have a prefix of CW underscore. Sorry about that, little pop-up. All of your tables are going to have a prefix of CW underscore. It also lets you deploy, another instance of the ConnectWise pack and maybe call it CW2 underscore. It's just a way to say, hey, we want ConnectWise to import, twice into this same content store, maybe for two different ConnectWise systems. We have certain partners that do run two instances of ConnectWise and they don't want their data overlapping. So it allows you to create some form of separation inside of one content store specifically. Once you've actually configured which packs you want on a content store, you simply hit this refresh button. And what this is going to do is it's going to go through, it's going to deploy all the tables, it's going to deploy our custom procedures, views that we use and make accessible to you guys for easy reporting. What we've done is, instead of having to just look at raw tables, we have created some very handy views with some metrics that we use in our dashboarding product today. So those that are, using the ConnectSMART CS4 product are going to be pretty familiar with the data that they see in that table. There's going to be different columns with calculated metrics, so you can kind of get a clear idea on how we gather your information, put it together, and give you the data, right at hand that matters to you most, with regards to service and financial metrics for the most part. So what we've done is we've actually refreshed the store. Those tables are now available. The pack is now deployed. ConnectIO knows, hey, you want your ConnectWise information to go into that store. So the next step really is, well, how do I get it in there? And this is all done through the scheduled task menu item. Basically, a scheduled task, we have a separate scheduling infrastructure. It runs about every 10 seconds. 8 of them kick off. They're very aggressive and looking for jobs to execute and get through as fast as possible so you can get your data as quick as possible. If you click on this schedule import button, you'll see a few different options that you can choose from. You actually can choose the store that you want to set the task up for. The pack, this one only has ConnectWise deployed, so we can select ConnectWise there. And then you have a basic set of tasks available to you, which are pretty straightforward. You have the base import, which is basically, hey, let's slam through everything I got. Let's get all my data in there because I want to do some BI reporting on it. And it'll go back as far as it can. Everything is through the ConnectWise API. So whether you're on-prem, whether you're hosted, we can gather up all of that information, get it into ConnectIO, which completely offloads the BI crunching process from your production systems, which is more of an enterprise model. It's the way that large businesses don't affect their core solutions while still crunching very heavy metrics against all of their BI information across, their entire infrastructure. So for the sake of this demo, we're going to do a base import. Once you go in, you're pretty much going to want to do a base import just so that you have as many records as possible available. What you do right here is we're just going to put in our ConnectWise server information. What goes here is actually your ConnectWise integrator login info. If you're not familiar with the integrator logins, basically ConnectWise has, essentially service accounts built into their product. So you would go to the setup tables. There's an integrator login table. You can create those users and define which APIs they have access to. We have docs available online today, which kind of detail those process step by step. What do you need to do on your end to set up a proper integrator login? Fortunately, that's about a 2-minute process. All you need is administrator credentials to ConnectWise, and you can effectively set this up very quick, very easy. Once it's set up in ConnectWise, you just plug those credentials right in here, and you're good to go. The time zone, sorry, close that on accident. The time zone, bring this back. What the time zone is we actually have a bunch of UTC fields in ConnectWise. And what we do is we allow you to define your time zone. So the fields that are UTC, we can calculate their local date and time automatically, and we put that right into the table with it for you, so it's easier to reference, a little bit more natural, because a lot of people don't like calculating UTC offsets when they're trying to do reporting. Just adds another layer of complexity. So we put that ability in here to swap those time zones, very easily. We actually, it's a type ahead list, so you just fill it out. We're located in Florida, so we're going to be basically on East Coast time, hence America, New York. The base import max records. What this is we allow you to control how many records we should go back. So some people's systems have hundreds of thousands of records that go back 10 years. Well, you might not care about importing all of that information, and really you can if you would like to. What it's going to do is it's going to increase your database size. It means you're probably going to have information in there that isn't necessarily critical to how you operate today. So what some people do is they might set it to 50,000, which means, hey, I only want to import the last 50,000 tickets or 50,000 invoices, whatever it might be. This is the max number of records we're going to go back for any specific object out of ConnectWise that we're looking at. So for this demo, we're going to go back a couple thousand. That way it's fast. If you set it to 100,000, certain systems, it can take 30 minutes. Some, it can take an hour, depending on where your system is, the beefiness of your server. That really has a heavy effect on how long you'll be hanging out waiting for your base data to import. One thing to mention is once it does start importing, it's always going to start with the newest records first. So that way you have data immediately available to you, and then it's just going to continue to go back in time as far as it can go until either the ConnectWise API service tells us, hey, I don't have any more records, or I simply don't have the horsepower to search that far back into the database to get what you need. Typical limit constraints, a couple of the big ticket tables are the ticket table is a big one. Service is a big one. Service audit is a big one. But we find going back 100,000 records meets the needs of 95 to 97% of our customers, because that typically spans close to 5 to 7 years of actual operations. And most of our customers are interested in the trending on about the past 3. So it's a safe bet to set it at 100,000 and just leave it there when you want to run it. It makes it a little bit easier to not try to go back and figure out, well, I have so many tickets here that I only want this much or whatever it might be. So definitely recommend just setting it at the default to 100,000. The enable debug flag really is for those edge cases for certain customers. As you know, ConnectWise can be configured one of a million ways. There's very standard ways that people use ConnectWise, and then there's very custom ways that people are using ConnectWise. And so, in those instances, we allow you to actually just turn on debugging by pressing 1, and as it's doing the import, it's going to give you some very verbose output as to what it's seeing, what it's looking at, what kind of responses are we getting from the server, and it just allows us to go in, turn on that flag, and basically say, okay, based on this log, this is what we're kind of seeing, so these are the tweaks we need to make. So once you kick that off, it sets it up as a task inside of ConnectIO. You'll see the next run date is pretty much right now. It's immediately. You have some basic functions controlled right here. You have one to run the task now. If it's not running, you can click that, or maybe the task is scheduled for the future. You can actually say, hey, I don't want to wait for the future. I want that thing to run now. So you can actually click that button and kick it on off. The cancel run, depending on if the task is running or not, has sort of different actions. If it's just simply scheduled, isn't in the process of running, and you click cancel run, it simply unschedules it. So that way, when its time to run comes up, it's just going to be ignored because it technically doesn't have a date to run next, so you don't have to worry about it. If the task is running, like it is now, and you click cancel run, what it actually does is it goes out to our servers responsible for running the import scripts, whatever they might be, and actually kills the process off in real time. That way you don't have any running operations just kind of dangling there. We terminate them, we unschedule the task, and you basically reset the task in ConnectIO to just kind of being a idle state for the most part. Won't run in the future. And you don't have to worry about it all of a sudden just kicking off for no reason. The delete, pretty straightforward. What it's going to do is just delete it out of the queue. If it's running, it's going to send the commands to say, hey, I need you to terminate this task. I'm going to remove it out of the queue. That way it doesn't continue to run in the future. And then we have the TAS Log option where you can actually see some details in terms of what it's importing. So I set this thing for 2,000 records. And as you can see, it's going through your configurations, your companies, your campaigns. It's going through all of your metadata inside of ConnectWise and importing everything that it can get out of there. That way we can make it available to you as easily as possible for, again, your reporting and your dashboard solutions. So while this is running, this will take a few minutes of time, we'll talk a little bit about, how do we get your data? What really is a pack, and what does it mean to you guys? So if you go into the pack editor section of the product, and this is something that we currently use internally, and we will be rolling out to you probably in Q4 of this year as we add more and more abilities to dynamically test your import procedures and scripts from within the browser. Our main goal is to essentially allow you to build full integration packs without having to do anything other than log into ConnectIO and do it right in there. And so, internally, this is what we use. If there's certain parameters or certain configurations that are slightly different, outside of the norm, we will log into your tenant under a service account. We will go right into the pack editor, which I'll just hop right into the ConnectWise pack. And as you can see, we have all types of files, scripts, models, procedures, the triggers themselves, right in here. So we can control down to the object exactly how your information is imported and made available to you. To give you kind of a brief overview of what a pack is, because these will be made available to you to edit and control for those more advanced users. You have essentially pack options. Pack options are, what are my settings that absolutely have to be set for me to import data out of a target system such as ConnectWise. So you'll notice here we have a ConnectWise server. I obviously need that, a ConnectWise user, password, company, the time zone setting, the base import max records, which again, it just limits, when we run a base import, what's the total number of records we actually, want to go back and bring in. For demo purposes, I usually would set it pretty low. So if you would just want to go in and test it out, set it at 1,000, set it at 2,000, and that'll make, the reporting available to you and a couple of the other features. So you can kind of poke around and see what's going on. The enable debug, again, really just about giving us a flag to turn that on in case we need to provide some extra support. Once we turn that on, we get a whole bunch of extra output that lets us diagnose what's going on in your system as a whole. In the tree on the right, you'll see a couple sections. A lot of this is pretty straightforward in terms of what they are. The way we break a pack down is into scripts. Scripts are essentially what imports your data. It's the operation that goes out, talks to the API, gets the information you need, and then slams it into the store however we want to put it in there. The models, they are basically your tables that get deployed within the store. And we have a full what you see is what you get editor for those models right in the browser. And as you make changes to them, when you refresh the store on the content store page, it'll actually go through, reconcile any differences for you, and you can kind of see the things that you can, in fact, tweak, and we'll cover those briefly in a second. The procedures are what we use when we actually want to make sure that we have some handy stored procedures for reporting available to you. It's also what we use to make sure that we can get some standardized views in there for you that are handy for use going forward. And getting feedback from you guys, and taking that feedback and getting into a packet and making it available becomes very easy, because all we simply do is get it into your tenants. You just go refresh your store. Immediately, those views or procedures are available for you to use as well. The triggers are what you actually saw in the scheduled task. And so instead of making you set up, pick scripts, pick the intervals that you want them to run on, all of that, we can pre-configure all of that information. That way you can just deploy easy tasks, and we can tweak and optimize what their schedule is, what operations are run depending on what you're trying to import, what you do want to import, what you don't want to import. Just gives us a nice standard single point of entry for managing those trigger schedules, because as we make changes to here, it will affect the schedule that your actual schedule task runs on. So to go a little bit into the script, and this is going a little bit deeper, but for those that have some programming knowledge, scripts are basically, in this instance, we wrote them at PHP. What you actually can see here is you can select your interpreter. So if you're comfortable in any of these languages, you can actually write a pack procedure to get data in there. We really don't want to tell you what language to write it in. You can pick it right here. It'll run those scripts in that language for you, and make it very easy for any low-level software engineer to get in there, understand it, and really, out of the 4 that are available here, some of the most popular languages that people are using today. So, it makes it really accessible for finding resources to build integrations for you out the gate. Some of the other things you could do, obviously, is create your script containers, which are really the folders that you see these scripts are under, new procedures, models, and triggers, and so on and so forth. So as you can see in here, we have a bunch of import scripts. All of the base import operations are run using the import scripts. You can see, obviously, we aggregate a whole wealth of information out of your ConnectWise system today. A lot of this is utilized and came from our needs on the CS4 dashboard product for the most part. What we do is we aggregate a whole bunch of information, put it together in a nice, easy-to-use format, and then if you're in tune with how to actually write scripts, we expose a whole bunch of helper functions to make this super easy. And so, out of this 35-line code file, you now have all of your activities imported into ConnectIO. It was designed to be very pattern-based for the most part. So once you figure out your pattern for getting some object out of your system, you can basically reproduce that over and over and over again for different systems, whatever it might be. They all follow the same structure, copy and paste over and over again, adjust which columns, and that way, once you kind of figure out the magic sauce for pulling something out of one target system, you really can go to town just pumping out new scripts to get that done as well. On the model side, what we have is essentially the tables are the table definitions for how information is put into the database itself. And so rather than creating your own database, which is what people do today, and actually going through the effort of coming up with your data model for that, okay, now I need to write an integration script, okay, that's done as well. Well, now I need to run it on a schedule, so now let me write a scheduler for it. Really we've broken it down to just a couple components. So for example, if you actually bring up the activity type, you'll see we have the name. The slug name is a short identifier for what that table is going to be represented as in the database. So even though we call this activity type, the actual name in our store is going to be CW underscore activity type because of the prefix that we applied to it. And then what you can do is actually define which columns are on there. And you can use either friendly names, you can use internal, very system-like names, where if you're familiar with the database, they don't necessarily like things like default flags. So we let you define, or it auto-defines a system name, which would be default underscore flag. So it all makes sense. It's all easy to use in that regard. Every column has a different data type. As you see, we've kind of dumbed down the names of the data types because we don't want you to have to worry about low-level database types. So, a Boolean is obviously just a true or false field. An integer, large integer. A money field is just to store currency. Text, text can basically store things that are typically larger than anything you'd really need to store. Up to thousands and thousands of characters. And a large text is that instance where you really need to store, possibly megabytes of information in the database. Maybe it's a document you're uploading. Maybe it's a large, basically any large text file for the most part. You can use those columns to store your information. And again, we have date and time fields just to make that easy as well. Depending on your database knowledge, we also allow you to create indexes from here to find, okay, this is a column I'm constantly going to be searching on. So we let you actually kind of set that, hey, I want you to index this column, which makes it very quickly to access it through queries that you write custom. And a lot of these optimizations we do ourselves and we do through our professional services team. And we're always happy to kind of look at your setup, look at what you're trying to accomplish on a BI front, and we can actually create you custom models and custom integration packs, which will get your target systems data right into ConnectIO and tie it together with ConnectWise and LabTech and anything else you want for the most part. Moving on to the triggers, or I'm sorry, the procedures. The procedures are pretty straightforward right now. We do have some UI coming in that will make this a little bit easier, but really it's just a place for us to drop in the views. That way when you refresh the store, it makes it available to everybody else. Really easy to use. If you have some SQL knowledge, that's for the most part all you need. And we plan to open all of these packs up. Our kind of mindset is we want to share as much as we can about how we actually do it, how we build it, how we put it together. So those that are feeling, maybe just curious, those that are a little bit more tech savvy, can hop right in, play with it. The beautiful thing is you really can't break ConnectIO. If you mess up, you can refresh your store or reset it entirely, run your imports again, and hey, everything is okay because you've just refreshed your data again from scratch. Check this task, by the way. Looks like our base operation has actually run, but we'll continue on to the last triggers piece underneath this product. So we just ran a base import. What does that even mean? So as you can see, we have some scheduling options here. The base import's always set to run once. Essentially what that means is, hey, don't even wait. I want my data in there. I need to run it now. So when you schedule this task, it's going to kick off immediately. What we also have is the scheduled event. And the schedule event can run on a whole bunch of intervals. We have things for the quick refresh, such as your tickets that are run every minute. You can run things every hour, every day at a certain time, or every week, which allows you to set a time and which days in that week you want it to actually run. On the right, you will see all of the scripts in the order that they are actually executed during the base import. So what you end up seeing, is that we obviously imported, the activities, the agreements, configurations, contacts, invoices, all of that good stuff all the stuff that's really necessary to get the value out of your BI reporting for the most part. And one of the things that you can also do here is, easily reorder, hey, what's the order that I want to bring these in? Makes it really nice and easy to, structure kind of your import process for the most part. Certain things you might want to come before other things, well, you can do that all right here, as well as if there was any other scripts available in this folder, they immediately can be added back into the import process. These aren't in it, so we can just simply add them back in. They pop into the bottom, and then we can bring them up to reorder them however we like for the most part. So now that the scheduled task is run, we'll flip right back over to here, and you'll look at the task log. We'll see that it's gone through, imported a whole bunch of information. Okay, so you might be asking yourself, where is this information now in ConnectIO? How do I know you actually did anything? Well, what we have here is we have the model viewer. The model viewer is something we recently worked on just to make it a little bit easier to kind of view that information right inside of the ConnectIO console. What you'll see here is you'll see a list of your store tables. So you'll notice it's demo ConnectSMART. You got your activities, you got your campaigns, your companies, invoices, whatever it might be, as well as you can view view information right there. So we have views for time and tickets and different ways of looking at your invoices and expenses and so on and so forth. Just by clicking on ticket, you can actually see all of the rows of information that we get in there. And this really just helps us, view quickly and easily that, hey, we did get the data in there. You don't have to worry about where it came from, and you can also export the information that you're looking at, or, add a new model directly from this page. So once your data has been imported, there's a couple things you can do from within ConnectIO directly. The first thing that I'm going to do is actually show you how to schedule before I schedule a report, why don't we look at a report? So what we're going to do is we're going to go over to the custom reports section, which is a screen. And what you're seeing here is a blank screen, not too exciting. Basically, the reason it's blank is because we haven't selected a report. In this environment, I've uploaded a sample executive summary report. You also have the option to upload a report from your local system, or if you're using our report designers, which Gail will be covering in a webinar next weekend, you can actually upload the report templates directly from the designers, so you can pull them down, edit them, and then re-upload them right back into ConnectIO. But this is an easy mechanism for kind of viewing the reports and how they're rendered right inside of the web browser. So I click on this executive summary report. What that's doing is it's communicating out to our report server, and it's saying, hey, I need you to go get this report, and I need you to render this as quickly as possible. My internet's been moving a little bit slow today, so hopefully this thing will kick up in a second here for everybody to see. And we'll let that kick off. While that's going, we'll go ahead and flip back over to the scheduled task, where we can start scheduling a report. Take a second to do anyways. So scheduling a report, David Ortiz covered that a little bit last week in the webinar. What we can do is we can say, Patrick's exec summary report, and we'll just say, hey, this is an instant report. Typically I'd write the actual schedule in there just to make it a little bit easier to identify. I only have one report in there, so I'm just going to select that report. You can choose the store credentials or not, basically. So inside of the report, when you edit it in the designers, they're going to have credentials in there because those are the credentials you're using against your store to figure out, hey, this is the data I'm trying to talk to, and this is the data that I actually want to display. And once you've selected your report, selected, hey, I just want to use the credentials that are already set in it. I don't want to use anything custom. You can basically set up your parameters. And so these parameters actually come out of the report directly. So whatever you edit in the report, if you add a custom parameter or filter to it, they show up here, and this allows you to kind of set those ahead of time. So when this report is emailed out, these parameters are going to be hard-coded for that end user. That way they can't change them on the fly. It's preset to the whatever way they want it presented to them for the most part. And so for our sample, we're actually going to use these macros that are in here. So I'm going to say, I want the start date of this report to be the beginning of last month. I want the end date to be the end of last month, so this would basically be our report for June. I'll leave all the other settings alone because I'm just going to say, hey, I don't care about the service board. Show me everything. Doesn't really matter. Next piece is the delivery options. So if you want to actually email this report out to an end user, you can go ahead and put that information in. You can put your own custom subject on it. We have additional macros in here, for things like the tenant name, the report path, which you'll see here, which is the report URL. You can put it in the customer name, which comes out of a separate field as well. You can put the dates, maybe that it was filtered on, the other macros that you can see for the report parameters themselves. And then the last option is you can actually choose, when do you want this report generated and delivered? So, some people want to run them on a schedule, every hour, every day at a certain time, every week. Very similar options to how you actually do the triggers themselves for the packs. And we'll be expanding those options. Some of them are a little aggressive. Why would you want to report emailed every minute? Not too many people have that need. Maybe every 30 minutes or every, hour is more applicable to you. You can do that today. We have the highest level of, or I would say the lowest level of granularity in there right now. What we're going to be doing is kind of even dumping them down even more, just so that they're more relevant to the options that our end users are actively setting all the time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and save this, creates another task in here, which is your Patrick's exec summary report. This one's going to run. It's going to actually crunch the report. It's going to send an email, and then it's going to put the report into a place in ConnectIO where I can see, the report that was generated and what time it was generated. So flip back over to the first task, and my report has not come up for some reason. Come back here. And that's what I get for using a staged environment today. So while that's doing its thing, we'll go ahead and flip over to the generator reports. You're going to see that the report was generated at 7/9/2015. You'll see, we have a report identifier right there. And what I can do is just click on the report itself. It's going to go out. It's going to query the report server directly with the parameters that were already specified, which makes it a little bit easier to figure out what's going on that end. And here the report comes right now. You're going to see that it's loading with your preset parameters. Again, I set this to run from June 1st all the way up to June 31st. So it's going to spit it out right on the page right this second. Takes a little second to crunch the data in real time. This report's pretty long and it crunches a whole bunch of metrics. As you see from here, you have your export options available to you. You have a CSV, you have text, you have HTML, all the standard formats that any end user would want to get their data spit out in. So, the parameters will show up there. You can flip through the different data in there to make it real easy. We have a whole bunch of charts related to service level metrics right in here. And it just makes it really handy for kind of seeing that right out the gate without having to put in too much effort on that. So if we go back to here, basically we've covered, how do you view the reports, how do you schedule the reports. The last piece to really go over is the managed users. So right now we simply have a service account in here, which is standard for our demo environment that we created. You can add new users. Those users have different rights. So let's say you don't want the users to be able to edit packs. You can take that away from them. You don't want them to edit the actual tasks. You can also take that away from them. You can control whether or not they're allowed to actually view the model browser, because the model browser will show a whole bunch of information that's relevant to your business. So depending on the role of the person logging in, maybe they aren't privy to that information, so you want to actually restrict that. You can also control whether or not they can create users, and whether or not this user account can be used to log into our report designers. As some of you know, when you bring up the report designers, it actually asks you to authenticate against ConnectIO. You can't use it. And that's really so, we can enable automation features inside of the designers that automatically set up certain things like your connection strings and what store you're expecting to talk to and so on and so forth. So we let you manage that all directly from underneath the Manage Users page right here. So on the overview page, you'll notice that now, after I've imported this data, we've imported 20 megabytes of database information, made that accessible to everybody, so it's real easy to use. We have no more running tasks because, frankly, our tasks have already completed. And what most of our end users will end up doing is wanting to schedule their information to update all the time. So what we have here is a couple other tasks. And once you've provisioned one ConnectWise pack task or any of our packs, they all share the same properties, right? So there's really no reason to have to fill them in every time. So to set up your quick refresh, you can actually just open it up, select the task, and hit save. And what this does is it runs quick refresh tasks. And quick refresh tasks are, if I open up another tab, get a little tab heavy here, and we go back into ConnectWise, and you look at the quick refresh itself, you'll see that basically every minute we're looking for minute changes. Tickets change, your time is always going to change, activities, invoices. In an ideal situation, you're going to generate invoices all the time. As you're going through your day and closing consulting projects and doing your invoicing at the end of the month, whatever it might be, invoices come from anywhere basically. Scheduling, your service audit, which is again a really heavy table because it's always putting in new rows of information related to all of the different changes on a ticket. So it's very, very heavy in modifications, and this kind of keeps the import load down because it's just every minute looking for those small changes and bringing them into ConnectIO. A couple of the other tasks, while we're in this section, is the hourly refresh. So configurations and companies don't change as frequently. So what we've done is we've actually moved those into an hourly refresh. So rather than look for those every minute, to keep things a little bit more optimized, we import those and refresh those every hour, looking for new companies and configurations that have been put into the system. So, some of these tasks can simply be moved to the quick refresh. If you, for whatever reason, create a whole bunch of configurations, maybe you're rolling out PBX phones all the time, because we do have some providers that are our telco providers, and so they're provisioning all kinds of smaller bits of hardware left and right on an ongoing day-to-day basis. They're not simply going out, setting up servers, letting them sit there, and then they might adjust that configuration a little bit later, outside of a standard lab tech configuration sync process or whatever it might be. So this allows us to kind of pick up every hour those changes for the configurations on that end for the most part. And then we also have the nightly. What the nightly does is it looks at those things that don't typically change as often, and those things that don't need to be made available to you right away. And we adjust all of these, per our customers' requirements. What I'm showing you is the default setup. So, every single night, we actually refresh your members. People don't add members all the time to ConnectWise, so there's no real reason to pick those up every hour. So we'll pick those up every night for you. Things like new products you put in there, or new projects, or campaigns, things that are typically planned for well ahead of time and aren't things that you are, actively dropping in there on a quick and ongoing basis. Some of the other things to to look at, and where we're going in the future with this. And as you'll see now, we have a quick refresh that's scheduled up as a upcoming task, and one just finished. Again, this one runs every single minute, so it's always going to be on here, because the second it finishes, and as you can see, it's running again. The second it finishes running, it goes back into the aggregation bucket, and it's going to be there, so you can kind of see a view of exactly what's pending to run versus what is running. The ones up here in running tasks, they hang out for a little while. That way, the second it finishes, it just doesn't disappear. Hey, this finished within the last few minutes here. Up here, you can see just a list of, basically the tasks that have finished, recently for the most part. And if they're running, they'll show up here in progress. But that makes it really accessible from every page to kind of see what's going on your scheduled task page. Over here, you can kind of see, I added it back to a store, I created the content store, uploaded new reports, that kind of stuff. So you can see an audit log of, what's been happening with the users and what they've been actually doing in the system. And what we're going to be doing and dropping in right now, which is coming up and really exciting, are a bunch of new wizard walkthroughs for you guys. So when you log in, you can actually make it really easy for you to select your basic tasks, select your basic options, get it all deployed, and hey, you just accomplished essentially everything, and there's nothing else to do on that front. You can walk away and know that your data is in there, and it's available to the pre-canned reports that we have available. Once you open up the report designers, you plug in your credentials, you say, hey, this is great. You can grab the report, and you can actually preview those reports with real data. And Gail Vaughn over here is actually going to be covering that next week on our, I believe it's the next Thursday webinar, actually, to show you guys a little bit about, how do the report designers tie to ConnectIO to make this whole process easy and seamless. Some of the other things we're doing is we are going to be deploying some new packs this month, which is exciting. We've been doing some testing with some of our customers already, and we're looking to drop in the auto task and the Kaseya packs, and we've also have a SQL agent available as well, which allows you to write custom queries for external systems. You simply just write the queries. You say, hey, I want this bit of information from this external system in there. We don't even need to have access to it from the outside. It'll get those bits in there, and then you can build reports, or you can engage our professional services team to help you actually accomplish building those reports or building those dashboards, as quickly and as easily as possible. So other than that, that's the general overview of ConnectIO and kind of how it fits into the grand scheme of things. What we're looking to do is find new ways to open up, capabilities for our end users to hook in more and more of their systems. What we want to do is not really restrict it to certain products. We want to make it easy to import multiple products, and we have a couple tools that are in the pipeline for this month to get pumped out to make that as easy as possible for you guys. Maybe you have files that are in Dropbox, for example, that are Excel sheets or CSVs or in a standardized format. You want to get those into ConnectIO, so we have mechanisms that are being worked on to help you guys accomplish all of that. And really, the core solution itself is done. It's just about getting more of your information underneath the hood and tying it to CS4, so that way you can build new gadgets and charts and all of your live metrics just right out the gate and make it as easily and seamless as possible, because, as we know, we don't want our customers spending a lot of time configuring all of this. So our goal is to make it easy to get your data centralized, make it all available, and then that way you can get the BI needs met that your organization's kind of outlined as requirements to function day to day, or on a monthly or quarterly basis. So other than that, if anybody has any additional questions, any thoughts, any additional features that they would like to see, maybe there's some integrations you guys are looking for, we're actively reaching out talking with their customers, getting a handle on even more bits of information that they're trying to put together to get real value out of the business. We have, 5 new report templates coming out for just the PSA and RMM tools by the end of this month, which will all be available to you guys to schedule up, to run on demand, to do all of that good stuff. And that way it'll actually enable you guys to log in, import your data, and then immediately you have these reports available to you that you can actually heavily customize. And rather than me fully touching on that today, I'm going to let Gail walk you through all those pieces, because really once you get a hold of our templates, we don't hide anything. There is no magic sauce in terms of how we actually present the data to you. What we've done is we've put together templates that are easy to understand, easy to use. If you want to tweak colors and logos and whatever it might be, maybe remove a chart from it that you don't like or add a new one, that's all available to you. So the first piece is really just understanding what ConnectIO is and what it has to offer. And then we're going to lead you into the webinar next week to cover kind of how that fits into the grand scheme of things to make reporting a lot easier for you overall. So if anybody has any questions or any feedback, feel free to submit an email just directly to support@connectsmart.com. We'll also be posting up this webinar for everybody to actually take a look at, offline, if there's something you want to refresh your brain on, that I covered today. And if you have any additional questions and you want to ask them to me directly, you can feel free to reach out to Patrick@connectsmart.com. Happy to get on the phone with you, chat a little bit about, some BI options for you and how we can actually, fit ConnectSMART platform to your organization as a whole. So I am always available to reach out to you and discuss, whatever options you guys are looking for. Feel free to drop me a line or just call into the office, and me and the rest of the ConnectSMART team will be happy to help you out. Other than that, I just like to thank everybody for taking an hour out of their time today. I know it's always busy in the managed services space, so I really appreciate you taking the time to cover these topics with me. And again, you can reach me at patrick@connectsmart.com if you have any other questions that you would like help on. Thank you, everyone, and have a fantastic rest of your day.